Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Small Business Briefing. I'm Rob Fowler, CEO of the Small Business Association of Michigan. My co-pilot is on vacation today, so Brian will not be joining us, but have a good briefing for you today. It's Monday, July the 12th, and this briefing is brought to you by Marana Group. Marana Group is a data, document, and distribution solutions company. If you're operating an e-commerce business, Marana Group can offer warehousing, order processing, and seamless distribution of your material. You can find out more about Marana Group at maranagroup.com. So it's July 12th. This is kind of an important day around SBMM. It's actually our reopening day. As many of you know, we have been a mostly, in fact, almost entirely virtual organization since the beginning of the pandemic. Most of our briefings came to you from my den and Brian's basement or his car early on. And today we come back to our office. And so an important day. We're going to be a hybrid organization in many respects. Some of our employees are going to be hybrid or going to be virtual pretty much all the time, and others of us will be in the office most of the time. I want to take just a moment to really commend the SBMM staff. And I think we've talked about this a little bit, that we have 27 employees who wake up every morning and go to work to make Michigan a better place to run a small business. And that's what we do for a living. We are on mission to make Michigan the best it can be for starting a business and operating a business. And we have 27 very dedicated employees doing exactly that. And I want to just take the moment to thank them for really their dedication, their flexibility throughout this entire pandemic. Not one single SBMM staff person left during the pandemic. We had zero turnover. And I think that is largely because we felt as though we were on mission to help small businesses, and virtually all of us had the experience of talking with someone who was really struggling during this pandemic. So thanks to the SBMM staff, really, really appreciate it as we sort of come back and get back into our rhythm. Well, today we have a guest. Allison Beers is our guest, and we're going to talk a little bit about the meetings industry. Allison has a company called Events North, and Allison's a brand new member of the SBMM board. And first of all, Allison, welcome to the board and welcome to the briefing. Hey, can you tell us a little about your company?
Yeah, so I own Events North. We are based in Traverse City, Michigan, and we work all over the state of Michigan and the country, planning corporate meetings and events.
You know, so I think one of the things that we have observed as we've gone along is that, you know, certain things were closed and other things were affected. I saw, you know, we've talked about dry cleaners. Dry cleaners were never closed, but they were certainly affected. Mm-hmm. I saw an article about auto repair places that are killing it right now because people are not buying new cars. They're hanging on to their old cars. It's just how businesses are affected. You were never closed, but you were certainly affected. What's going on in your business?
We were greatly affected. So if you didn't switch to a virtual world very quickly and have that ability, then there was very work to be done in the meeting and event industry. So while restaurants could open at 50% capacity, our venues that we work with were, 100 people for a ballroom that holds 3,000. So it was a standstill, and it was hard on the hotels. It was hard on the meeting planners. We fared very well, thankfully. We had a lot of long-term clients we've had for 13 years who recognized educating their most important audience was still important. And so thanks to the PPP and also a good base of long-term clients, we made it just fine. And we're doing even better. And I kept saying, we're coming back in 2021 and 2022 even better. And this year is going gangbusters already.
So, I think one of the things we're all observing is we're in that awkward space between hybrid and in-person. What's your sense of where we stand now and how it's going to move along from here? The SBMM annual meeting just a month ago was hybrid. And I know we're all going to be attending meetings in person here coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, so we think that events will be hybrid for our meetings will be hybrid for a while. There's still some that are, not comfortable yet, but also we found that there's people who maybe can't travel for 3 or 4 days and they really want to be able to attend a meeting, but leaving the office or the home for that long isn't convenient. So with some of our meetings, they will continue to be hybrid for a while, or maybe recorded and posted to watch later with the content. So we see that trend not going away. However, we do see both two of our large clients turned on a dime the second that things opened. So one of them, we had the event this weekend, which is, I was telling Rob, my voice is a little raspy. I've been talking for a couple 17-hour days in a row. So I lose my voice typically during those large events. But, just a month ago, it was, well, I guess we'll have our smaller group of 50% capacity. And overnight it switched and we went to 237 people seated for dinner and a concert for 400 after. So that went really quickly. And so I see our clients and we have to be nimble to quickly make those changes with them. Another large conference for typically 1,100, 1,200 people went from being a hybrid version to nope, live only, let's do it. So we really want to get this industry back. And I think the hybrid model might work for a while. But generally what we're finding based on this past weekend, people miss each other. They miss the contact, they miss connecting. And I do think live events are back and we're here to stay.
It does sound, Allison, like you feel as though there are some things we learned that might stick around. That I think we certainly did during our annual meeting, that we may have reached some audiences who wouldn't have driven to Lansing to sit down for lunch and spend the kind of time involved. Do you see there being some permanency to some of this?
I do. I mean, like you said, the people who don't have the time but really do want the content or information or a way to connect, not everyone can leave for multiple days. And I think if we can keep doing that, but still having that live connection, you can't replace the connection of being in person and one-on-one talking. You truly can't. But if you're looking for content and information and to feel like you're part of something, you can still have that connection.
Yeah, I think one of the things we're experiencing now, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later in the briefing, is a big event we've been holding for 17 years called Michigan Celebrates Small Business. It's the state's awards program for small business. We recognize the SBA award winners and the 50 companies to watch and other awards. We found out 3 weeks ago we could turn this into a live event, and turned pretty much on a dime from what would have been hybrid to now, or what would have been virtual to now a live event. But one of the things I've noticed is there seems to be some reluctance for people maybe to come out. While maybe the industry is ready, are the people ready to come out? And so we see lower registration now on that event, just as one example. Are you seeing that across the board, and are people reluctant to get back into it?
No, and not what we're seeing. Based on this weekend alone, they're ready to go. I see a lot of changes in place though, and things that have been implemented that, to be honest, maybe should have been implemented before. Cleaning standards, how food is served. I wish hand sanitizer stations had been a thing a long time ago. So, just finding those things that make people feel more comfortable. I think it'll take a little bit for those who aren't, and we don't want anyone to feel rushed like if they're not ready to go back. But really it's time to get this industry back. There are housekeepers are hurting, front of house staff at hotels, caterers. These people need to be employed again, and they need to be fully employed again. And it's I see a big shift in the industry though, where a venue in town here in Traverse City has said, you know what, we only have staff for 150 people right now, and they can host up to over 200 people. But that's their comfort zone, and they're choosing to do what's best for the attendees. But we need to get these people back and feeling safe. It may take a bit, but I think people need to do what's ever comfortable for them, but we need to get our industry back working.
Well, you sort of alluded to this, that sort of permanent changes. I compared it to after 9/11, some things that just became the new normal. Do you see some of those things happening in the meeting industry that should give people a little more comfort that it's safe to come back to large meetings?
Yeah, so the big one is hand sanitizer. Just having clean hands and encouraging. I think the whole world is coming back a little bit cleaner this time, hopefully. So that's one big one, but not nearly necessarily safety wise, but I see some shifts in the industry that, I mean, it wasn't a rocket scientist to predict this one, but Hilton just announced they're doing no longer daily housekeeping, that it's by request only. But I kind of see that like the going away of airline meals, where eventually it'll be for an additional fee, you can have daily housekeeping service, or just stop in and we'll give you some toilet paper kind of thing. But there's little things like that that'll shift. How food is served is shifting to keep people safer. I think the help yourself long buffet lines will be a little while before those come back in full force. A lot of our clients are doing like a grab and go box meal or something that's plated and served to them at their table. But
buffets may be a thing of the past.
well, I don't think they're fully gone. I mean, we had some stations this weekend. It was outside though. So I think people felt more comfortable grabbing the food, but I think it'll be a little while before we're comfortable with a full buffet station.
Hey, before I let you go, I'm intrigued by another part of your business. It's actually a presentation you do called "Put Your Phone Down." Could you give us a snippet of that?
Yeah, so Put Your Phone Down started about 9 years ago with an incredibly intelligent intern that I had. But what she wasn't realizing, how her college and phone world didn't equate to the working world. But also I realized, I thought it was a young person problem. I'm like, oh my gosh, these young kids got to put their phones down. But then I realized it was it was multi-generational. And when I'd see grown men and women at Rotary with their heads down, when their phones in their lap during the meeting, and the speaker is speaking. So it came from a place of, we need to start connecting with people more. And it's even more prevalent in my industry, so I noticed it more. But it's a serious yet humorous look at business etiquette that I go all over the country and present on.
Well, that's awesome. Allison, looking forward to having you as a member of the SBAM Board of Directors. Good luck in your business going forward. Thanks for joining us on the
Thank
briefing
you.
today. Yep.
I'm so proud to serve. I'm looking forward to it. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, it is Data Monday, so let's take a quick look at the data. I'm going to look first at just the sort of daily cases. Obviously this has been going in the right direction for some time now. Friday's data was 224 cases on Friday. That's up a little bit from 2 weeks before that. 2 weeks before, on the 28th of June, the low was 110 cases. A week ago, 101. So we've seen some ticking up. It's almost entirely attributable to the Delta variant. So we're paying attention to that. Maybe just a little cause for concern, but still extremely low numbers. Positivity rate is 1.7%. So that's low and indicative of very low community spread. It's also below the 3% number that the state really has been trying to keep the positivity rate below, as an indication that there's not a lot of spreading of the virus. Also, deaths were 8 last week, and there were several days where there were 0 deaths reported. So we're really in that very, very low number ranges for there as well. Let's take a look at vaccinations. This is the state's COVID vaccine dashboard. 5,038,000 eligible residents, those over 16, that have had at least 1 dose. The population who's eligible is 8,096,000, so we're at 62.2%. 1 week ago, no, I'm sorry, July 1st, we were actually at 61.7, so up 0.5% since July 1st. At that pace, it'll take about 8 months to get to 70% and 70% is really the target the state has set for herd immunity. You know, regardless of how people feel about the vaccination themselves, what we believe is it's better for small business if we get to 70%, and we're hopeful that those who are on the fence would take the opportunity to get the vaccination, and we can get to herd immunity. Also, just want to cover a couple of other issues today. On the topic of the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, there had been some controversy about large companies getting the PPP, particularly some publicly traded companies, and that caused the SBA to give extra scrutiny to all those companies above $2 million. And kind of an interesting reversal, last Tuesday, the SBA began to inform banks, lenders, that they will no longer require a loan necessity review for PPP loans over $2 million. There was a loan necessity questionnaire that came along. It was Form 3509, 3510 for nonprofits. So if you were in that place where you had an over $2 million PPP, the good news is they will not be asking for that additional scrutiny. I do think there's going to continue to be pressure on particularly publicly traded companies who may have gotten the PPP, or very large small businesses who got a PPP, to search themselves to see whether they really did need it now in hindsight. And a number of companies have been reported to have given back their PPP as they look back and realized maybe it wasn't necessary. So little news on that front, no longer requiring that loan necessity review. Also, just wanted to mention that in the world of the pandemic unemployment comp and the Michigan Unemployment Insurance Agency, a letter was recently sent out to 648,000 COVID jobless recipients or UI recipients, asking them to clarify their qualifications. The backstory on this is the federal government, when the pandemic started, was pretty vague about eligibility, and states were pretty specific about eligibility. And you may remember early on, and I want to speak particularly to the self-employed, but there were some newly eligible companies. Self-employed had not been eligible for unemployment. It's sort of part-time and gig employees were not eligible by state rules, but found themselves eligible for the federal unemployment as a result of the federal pandemic unemployment. Now the federal government has sort of said back to the state, we want to check on eligibility, and there is really some contest between the state and the federal government about who is eligible and who is not. And the state is now sending out, asking some additional information. Again, 648,000 of those letters went out last week. That is going to cause a sort of broad review of eligibility for some people, businesses, small businesses in particular, who may have received it. There is a policy discussion among our state policymakers and federal policymakers that would suggest that it would be wholly unfair to ask anybody who'd gotten unemployment, pandemic-related unemployment, to have to give it back or in some way make restitution for that. $36.7 billion of additional unemployment has been paid out in Michigan to 3.35 million people since March of 2020. So it's consequential, and again, about 700,000 people have received this letter. We're going to stay on top of this, particularly as it relates to what we would consider to be small businesses, the self-employed, those even 1099 gig workers, gig employees, but who really are running a business of their own. So continuing to pay attention to that. Our voice will be that it really would be entirely unfair for the state to sort of renege on that promise that was made during the early part of the pandemic. So we'll pay attention to that. I want to also ask maybe for your assistance. We're beginning to hear some stories about companies who have exercised their right to require their employees to be vaccinated. It happens particularly in healthcare, and a couple of large hospitals in Michigan have announced that they're going to require their employees to be vaccinated. And literally, if they are not vaccinated, they will not be able to be employed there. It's a condition of employment. We've been saying from early on that's the employer's right. You can do that. Whether you choose to or not, that's obviously the employer's right as well. But now we're beginning to see large healthcare systems that are. But here's the question. They're also beginning to require their vendors to be vaccinated or to show proof of vaccination of anybody that goes onto their premises. So my question to you is, if you've begun to be impacted by this, we'd like to hear from you. You can let us know at sbm.org. I'd love to hear your story. If this is beginning to affect you, we know that some small businesses who are the vendors who are in the line for larger companies will be affected by this. And we want to understand a little bit about the practical implications and even the legal implications of large companies requiring this of their vendors. And so we're going to try to unpack that one as we go along. I mentioned earlier that Michigan Celebrates Small Business, an event which is the state's largest awards program that's really kind of a big deal every year. We recognize the 50 companies to watch, the SBA award winners, the Main Street award winners. It's a gala, it's a black tie kind of event, and it is July 20th this year, a little later than normal. And we went from what would have been a virtual or highly limited hybrid event to a wide open in-person event on July 20th in Lansing, in East Lansing at the Breslin Center. You can still get tickets for that at michigancelebrates.org. And I would just want to speak particularly to those of you who are former award winners at this event. We'd love you to register, come back, and help celebrate this year's class and the 2020 class of award winners who will also be there in person this year. And so if you would like to do that and you want to register and let us know that you were a former winner, we'll make sure that you can sit together with some of the other award winners and try to make it a real celebration this year. So I just want to encourage you, if you can, July 20th in the evening, come join us as we celebrate small businesses in Michigan. That is what we have for you today. Thanks for joining us. Thursday, we'll be joined by special guest Sherry Welsh, also an SBM board member. Sherry is in the talent business, and we're going to kind of talk about some practical things you can do to attract talent in this current environment. The issue that we hear really from all of our businesses, all of our members, that is the kind of the number one issue for everybody. We're also going to have Jay Davis from Cranes magazine, Cranes Detroit, and talk about a new initiative by Cranes aimed at small business. So hope you can join us on Thursday at 3 o'clock. We'll see you then. Bye now.